Okay, so let's kind of review here. We've been looking at these different components of the Keynesian model. And we started off looking at consumption. So we had income down here. We had consumption up here. We had our 45-degree line. And then we had our consumption function. Right? And we said that there was an autonomous component to consumption, right? We said that's going to be just A. All right, so here is our autonomous consumption. And then we said there was this other component that basically said as income went up, people spent more. They spent some percentage of their income, so we call that the MPC, the marginal propensity to consume. All right. And we said really there's only two different things that people can do with their after-tax dollars. They can spend them or they can save them. And so that in essence this marginal propensity to consume was equal to 1 minus this marginal propensity to save. The whole idea behind this 45-degree line was that at this point, consumption and income were equal, right? So here's Y, and here's C. And at consumption levels less than, or at income levels less than, say, Y here, we have basically this saving occurring in here. And over here, we would in essence have savings that was occurring. We also said we could look at this in terms of averages and not marginals, such we would have our average propensity to save and our average propensity to consume was also equal to 1. Right? And you'll remember that the average propensity to save, or the average propensity to consume, was just consumption divided by income. Our marginal propensity to consume was the change in consumption over this change in income. Okay. So remember, we've got this GDP equals to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. All right, we've got consumption now. Let's look at the investment part. Here's our income. Here's investment. Right. Keynes believed that income or investment was basically exogenous. It was outside of the system. People just determined, bless you, people determined how much they wanted to invest, and that's just what they did. Right. So investment's easy. It's just a straight line. Right. So here's your essentially investment function. Now we can change this in your intermediate macro class to be a little bit more realistic. But for our purposes, in a principles class, we're just going to assume that investment's constant. People just say, here's how much I want to invest. Government's the same way. So here is our income. Here's government spending. It's just autonomous, right? They just say we want to have some level of government spending GO. Right? So here is our government spending function, right? So once again, just this autonomous component here doesn't change. Our exports are determined by other people's income, which we can't control. So for exports, here's our income. Here's our exports, XO, right? It's just some autonomous level. It's exogenous. We have no control over it. We can't make people buy our stuff. It's just determined outside the system. Imports, though, are different, right? As people's income increases, we know that their consumption increases, right? Part of that increased consumption is going to be more imports. So for our imports, we have income, right? We've got imports. And there's some autonomous level of imports, right? We're going to call these guys MO. Right? Even at an income level of 0, you're going to have some amount of imports, because even at an income level of 0, you're going to have some amount of consumption. Some of that consumption is going to be imports. And then you have this marginal propensity to import. I want to have that guy be big M. All right? So when we're looking at our import function here, we see that our imports, I'll call this one M, little m. We'll call this guy little m y. Right? So we see here that as income goes up, we've got these different levels of imports that are occurring, right? Here, y1, y2, y3. There's some amount m1, m2, m3, etc. of imports. Okay. So when you combine these two guys, right, you know that you've got some autonomous level of exports, you've got some autonomous level of imports. Here's our income. Here's our net exports. And we have some net export function that looks like this. Right? Because remember, as income increases, exports are staying the same, but as income increases, imports are increasing. Right? Remember, net exports is just exports minus imports, right? So as income goes up, if this guy's staying the same and this guy's going up, this guy has to go down. So there's some income level here, I'll just call it, say, Y1. And what happens to our trade balance this way, at income levels less than Y1? What do we have? At some income level, say Y0. What's true about our trade balance?
They're not good.
It's positive, right? It's some positive number up here, whatever this is, 200 billion. What happens here at income level Y2? What do we have? Negative 200 whatever, right? So in here, we have a positive trade balance. And here we have a negative trade balance. Now once again, just think of being the total guy on the street. You're just average Joe. and you walk up to somebody, should we have a positive trade balance or a negative trade balance? What would they say? What would someone say? They'd say we should have a positive, right? We should have exports larger than imports. I hold it for 30 seconds. But in order to have a positive trade balance, what do you have to have? You got to have lower income. You got to be poor. Yes, Mary.
Does the negative trade balance, is it just a little triangle, or does it go all the way over?
It goes all the way over. It's just this guy. As income goes up, now he's negative 400. Why 4? Now he's negative 800 billion, trillion, quadrillion. Yeah, he keeps going forever. As income continues to go up, this guy gets more and more negative. Because remember, we have no control over our exports. We cannot make China buy more of our stuff. You just can't. You really can't. But as income goes up, we're going to buy more goods and services, and some of those additional goods and services, this is what's happening here with consumption. Some of those additional goods and services are going to be imports. So as incomes go up, you're going to have, in essence, this negative trade balance. Which means there's a really, really simple way for the president to achieve what he wants. He wants us to achieve a positive trade balance. He wants net exports to be positive. So there's a really simple way to do that. What is that way? Make us poor. This is what I mean about the average guy in the street. They don't understand anything. They really don't. I mean, should we have a weak dollar or a strong dollar? Strong dollar. Right? And we already saw the result of that. Should we have a positive trade balance or a negative trade balance? Positive. That sounds good. Positive trade balance. So let's combine all this stuff. Because we have these different components. Consumption, here's how consumption does. Here's how investment does. Government looks the same as this guy. Exports, just constant. Imports going up. We want to bring all of this stuff together because remember, Keynes says it has nothing to do with supply. People will supply what people are demanding and no more. That's what he says is going on. It doesn't make sense for them to supply less. It doesn't make sense for them to supply more. They'll supply what people will buy. All right? So let's combine all these guys together. Here's our income. We know what our we know what our consumption function looks like. It looks like this guy, right? So here is our consumption function. All right, and we have this little autonomous component here, AO, which we called. Now when we add investment, remember investment was just some constant number. We just called it IO. So when we add investment, this whole guy shifts up. Let's just do them in a different color. And what's this guy going to be right here? AO plus IO. Right? There's just that autonomous level of investment. Firms just say we're going to invest $400 billion this year. We've got autonomous government. What's this guy going to be? AO plus IO plus GO. We've got some autonomous level here of net exports. All right. So here we'll have AO plus IO plus GO plus XNO. All right. Only this time, as income goes up, this guy's going down. So this guy's not going to have the same slope. He's going to have a little bit of a flatter slope, right? So this guy right here should be, this red guy here should be completely parallel. He's not exactly parallel. Let's try to see if I can draw him a little better. All right, so here's our C plus I plus G plus our net exports, right? This is in essence our aggregate expenditure function is what we're going to call this guy. And what we want to know is, we want to know, okay, how much stuff do firms decide to make? So remember, in Keynes's mind, aggregate demand is everything. Right? Supply means nothing. He is completely a aggregate demand driven guy. People are going out demanding stuff, firms will build the stuff. They won't do anything else. So we've got our 45-degree line here. We've got some level of aggregate expenditures, whatever they are. Some amount of consumption. There's some value here for AO. There's some value here for IO. There's some value here for GO. There's some value here for XNO. There's some value, whatever it is, for this marginal propensity to consume. And there's just some value for the marginal propensity to import. They're just some number, whatever that number is. When you plug all those numbers in to this equation, you'll get this line. It has this amount of autonomous expenditures, and it has this slope. Right? So let's look at what's happening here with this guy. There's some level of income here, say Y1. AE1. And let's look at what's happened at some income level, say YO. So you see here at YO, here's our aggregate level of expenditures, AEO. Here's how much people are spending. Now what's true about AEO versus YO? Remember, this is just income or output. It is, to be exact, nominal GDP, right? Remember the ADAS model had real GDP on there. It's an important distinction we're going to see a little bit later on. But in the Keynesian model, you've got income on this x-axis, or you can call it output, or you can call it nominal GDP, whatever it is you want to call it, it's all the same thing. You've got some aggregate amount of expenditures, some amount of aggregate demand that's equal to AEO at some income level YO. What's true about AEO's value versus the value of YO? Which is lower?
AEO.
Is AEO lower? YO is smaller. Here's how much stuff people want to buy. Here's how much is being made. What's happening to inventories? They're getting smaller, right? Just like over here where you saw dis-saving, here you see declining inventories. Decline in inventories are a signal to firms to do what? Make more stuff. And so they're going to increase output. YO increases. There's some value, whatever the other value is, it can increase to anything that you want it to be. Y2. AE2. What's true here at Y? What's true at this point? They're declining less, but they're still smaller, right? Inventories are still getting smaller. People are buying this much stuff, and now firms are making this much. Inventories are still declining, a signal to them to do what? Make more stuff. Till you get to this point right here, where it crosses the 45-degree line. When it crosses the 45-degree line, what's true about AE1 and Y1? These guys are equal. Here's how much I'm making. Here's how much people are buying. Inventories are doing what? Staying the same, not changing. A signal to firms, don't make any more. What's happening over here at, say, Y3? Making too much. Here's how much we're making. Here's how much people are buying. What's happening to inventories? They're increasing. And this part, we see increasing inventories. So what do firms do? Make less stuff. Now they go from Y3 to, say, I don't know, some number here, say Y4. AE4. What's happening here at Y4 and AE4? Still making too much. The growth in inventories is getting smaller, but firms are still making too much stuff. It's only here at Y1 and AE1 where, in essence, they stop. If they're below this level, inventories are declining, signal to firms, make more stuff. How do I make more stuff? Go out, hire more people. Buy more capital, right? Start new factories, start new businesses. If I'm over here, inventories are too big. Signal to firms making too much stuff. Shut down factories, fire people, let them go. Right? As we go this way, nominal GDP is decreasing. As we go this way, nominal GDP is increasing. As we go this way, employment's falling, unemployment's rising. As we go this way, employment's increasing, unemployment's falling. Remember, this is all nominal GDP. It's not real. Till we get to Y1, AE1. And he says firms are going to want to make stuff. It doesn't make sense to make stuff that people aren't going to buy, is what he says. Clear? In Deutsch ist alles klar? Alles klar, ja? Oder nein? Ja oder nein? Klar? Okay. So, so far so good. We know we're going to get to output level Y1, right? Now, here's the problem. What happens if that's the full employment level of output? Because remember what the ADAS model says. We'll make these two guys the exact amount. Y1 here is equal to Y1 there. YF here is equal to YF there. In the ADAS model, what's going to happen? What's happening right here? Good things or bad things? Bad things, called a recession. Employment is doing what? Down. Unemployment is up. You have a whole bunch of people that are unemployed. They're like, crap, I would rather have a job at $8 an hour rather than at $9 an hour, which is the prevailing wage. There's a whole bunch of competition, right, for jobs. Real wages are higher here at Y1, remember? Because you started off at some point up here, and we came down to here for some reason, whatever that reason may be. You have all of this downward pressure on resource prices. As those resource prices decline, short-run aggregate supply curve increases. And we get here to YF, and we do so at this lower price level PL2 as opposed to PL1. Recession, unemployment higher than what it should be. Here is where unemployment's equal to the natural rate of unemployment, right? The 4 to 6%. So here it's something higher, whatever that number is, 8%, 9%, 10%, 12%, 40%, whatever. Here, resource prices decline to go from this point right here to this point. Returns us to full employment. What does Keynes say, though, about resource prices? They don't change. They don't decline. He says they stay the same. And that's actually technically not what he says. He just says they will eventually change in the long run. But the long run can be a long time. So people are coming along with this model hunky-dory all the way in the 1910s and 20s and stuff like that. You have this recession that occurs, and we keep staying, 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 we keep staying. And people are like, what the heck is going on? And Keynes comes along and says the problem is that wages and prices aren't going to decline, despite the fact that wages and prices had declined. And we now know that there was other things that were going on with monetary policy. The Fed had actually engaged in a restrictive monetary policy, not an expansionary monetary policy like they should have. And there were some other factors that were going on at play as well. But in essence, what he says is that the recession was caused by this decline in aggregate demand, and the only way to make things get better was to go back and have this increase in aggregate demand. You've got to find a way to get aggregate expenditures, aggregate demand, to go from this guy right here, AE1, whoops, to this guy right here, AE2. This guy should be straight. And if we can just get aggregate demand to increase from AE1 to AE2, at this Y1, hey, look. Here's aggregate expenditures for this level of income. Ooh, look, it's larger than output. Inventories are declining. Signal to firms, hire people, build new factories, increase output, and we'll go all the way up here to YF. So all you got to do is get one of these guys to change. Right? So let's look at what those guys are again, remember. Aggregate expenditures. C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Well, C was equal to A plus BY plus IO plus GO plus XO minus MO minus MY. All right, here's your aggregate expenditures. Autonomous consumption. How much people purchase when income is equal to 0. Easy to change or hard to change? Hard. Marginal propensity to consume. Easy to change or hard to change? Is it easy to get people to go out and spend more stuff at a higher rate, or is it harder to do that? In other words, is it easy to change human behavior or hard to change human behavior? Hard. Is that not obvious to all of us by now? Investment. Easy to change or hard to change? Firms go out and build more stuff. Easy to do or hard to do? Hard. Government spending. Easy to get politicians to spend more money or hard to get politicians to spend more money? Easy. Net or autonomous exports. Easy to get other countries to buy more of our stuff or hard to get other countries to buy more of our stuff? Hard. Autonomous imports. Easy to get us to buy less of other people's stuff autonomously or hard to get us to buy other stuff autonomously? Hard. Marginal propensity to import. Easier to get people to change their behavior, their consumption patterns, don't buy bananas, buy oranges, or hard to get people to switch from buying bananas to oranges, right? Because we don't make bananas here in the US or whatever. Easy to change consumer behavior or hard to change consumer behavior? Hard. So Keynes says, this guy's hard to change, 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 this guy's hard to change. This guy is relatively easy to change. All you got to do is convince 535 people to start spending more money. That's easy to do, especially if it buys them votes and keeps them in power. So he says, all you got to do is change G. You can change any of these guys, any of these autonomous components, AO, investment, XO, MO. You can change any of those, and you'll get these changes. But changing GO is easy. Relatively quick to do. By relatively quick, I mean in quotations. So he says what you should do is that if we're at this point, all we got to do is just change G here. And by changing G, we can change aggregate expenditures and get us to YF. What happens if we're on the other side? We know that over here, what happens here at Y2 according to the ADAS model? What's happening here relative to here? Output is higher than the full employment level of output. Unemployment is lower than the natural rate of unemployment, so it's like 3% or whatever. People working 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, they're working a ton of crap. People's real wages have done what? They've gone down. People are saying, I need a raise. Firms say, okay, because there's this pressure. I mean, if you don't pay that person, who else are you going to get to take his place? There's nobody, there's no big old pool of workers out there to say, well, we're not going to pay you that extra wage. We're going to go do something else. All right? Firms, in essence, increase wages. Short-run aggregate supply curve decreases. We get to this point right here, YF. Right? Real wage is the same here as here. We just do so at this higher level of prices, or like I said, if we make this model dynamic, a higher level of inflation. But Keynes says, well, we don't have to deal with that. If you're here, at AE2, I'll just call this AE, no, I'll call it AE3. Here we are at Y2. This guy right here is the same as this guy. What could we do? Because if we don't do anything, you're eventually going to get higher prices. You will get inflation. And we've already seen inflation's not good, even small amounts of inflation. Over the long run, they add up. They're not good. So how can we get from here to here? And here, in this model, we just get there and we just do so at a higher price level. What would Keynes say? Decrease G. If we decrease G, to this level, aggregate expenditures decline, we can get to this guy right here. Bless you. And think very, very carefully about what this says. This guy says you can literally micromanage the economy. You can literally pick your employment, your output rate, your aggregate expenditure rate, your inflation rate. You can pick it all. In essence, Keynes said we can, in essence, do away with recessions and depressions and boom times and inflation and everything else. We can micromanage the economy in such a way that we are always at YF. It's utopia. Right? Now, what we're going to see on Monday is how we're going to do that and what that actually is going to look like. And then what some of the problems with that were. Or Wednesday. Today is Monday. Okay, I'll see you guys on Wednesday.